Neil Monroe stars as Quentin Nickles in A Family Affair with Sarah Orenstein and Peter Millard.
Inspector, blow out the lamp and go to bed, for heaven's sake.
Sorry, Abby. I'm just reading this constable's report. You know, for a professional policeman, he can't seem to decide if Rodney Clemens was a suicide, a murder, or an accident.
Well, we'll find out tomorrow. Oh, why didn't Lemon get a separate traveling compartment? Doctor or not, I do have my modesty and a reputation to maintain.
Because he's a miserly man.
Yes, you aren't even supposed to be here, Wellington. Lemon's paying for my fare and nappies because I may need her services. On the other hand, you are here as an opportunistic journalist with a driving ambition to line your pockets with the coin of the realm gained through the misdeeds and misfortunes of others, to say nothing of your own.
I admire you too, Inspector. What's got him so riled up?
Maybe his intentions do not include you, Daniel.
Once aboard the lugger, sort of thing?
Well, he doesn't actually look like a pirate, I guess.
I'll thank you both not to discuss me as though I had vacated the rail car or turned stone deaf. Look here, my good man. We were told we'd find Constable Paul Stone hereabouts. Have you seen him?
I'm Stone. What do you need?
Constable Stone?
Part-time. Also the smithy, as you see. And I dig graves when called upon. Man's got to do what he can to get by.
Yes, I see. Well, I'm Inspector Quentin Nickles, and these are my associates, Dr. Abby Lapierre and Daniel Wellington.
Oh, Inspector, I wasn't expecting you so soon. Pleased to make your acquaintance.
How do you do?
And yours, ma'am.
A pleasure.
Sir.
Nice to meet you.
Well, let me wash up and we can talk. I'll be a minute.
Yes, well, that explains his report. He's a jack of all trades. Doesn't make the best policeman.
Shh. He'll hear you.
Abby, I am sick of amateur detectives who play at this game. It's a serious business.
Well, sir, let me shake your hand. I've read about you, and I'm a great admirer of your work. I only took this job because there was no one else. To me, a policeman should be trained proper and dedicated to his work, as you are. The rest of us lot should be left out of this.
Yes, well, I'm sure you do your best.
Yes, the great inspector was just saying how valuable auxiliary constables were to the overall keeping of law in the country.
Why, thank you, Inspector. You're very generous to say so.
And I'll wager you thought that a man of his reputation would be just a pompous blowhard.
Yes, well, thank you all. Let's get back to business, if you don't mind. Constable, perhaps we could visit where you found Clemens' body.
Straight away. As Chief Lemon directed, I haven't touched a thing.
Ah, capital.
Right here in the tackle room, Inspector.
Good heavens, man, the body's still here.
Yep. Haven't touched a thing. He's been there 3 days.
Yes, smells like a fortnight. All right, open some windows, please.
Oh, windows open over there, just like when I found
Yes,
him.
well, it's not doing the job. Open some more.
Oh.
Ain't none.
Oh, it's a ghastly mess. I'd say he died instantly. Oof. Bullet entered the right eye orbit and exited through the posterior cranium, removing at least a third of the brain with it. Typical large caliber wound.
Yes, what's this over his right eye?
A slight contusion and hematoma. Oof. Could have been there before he was shot.
Constable, this is how you found him, sitting in the chair?
Yes, sir. Mind you don't step on that 44 there by your foot.
No. Yes, of course, the object of his demise. You mentioned a Dr. Mulholland. What was his conclusion?
Accidental death. But I thought maybe someone shot him through that open window.
Single discharge round. But was he despondent? Did he have any enemies?
I don't think so. His parents died last month, and he inherited a passel of money. Father owned a granite quarry over in St. Mary's a while back.
Oh, so he's from that Clemens family.
Well, what's this over here? The lead from a 44.
The bullet that killed him?
No, this slug's pristine. Something goes through bone, gets pretty mushroomed up. He opened a cartridge for some reason.
Oh, here, I have the slug that killed him. Dug it out of the wall over there. Didn't think that would disturb the scene.
On his shirt. burned wadding from the bullet. Add powder residue embedded in the face, and rags, and an oil can for cleaning the gun.
And I'd agree with your doctor. An accidental shooting and a huge waste of my time. Well, granted, he's a nice enough fella, but completely out of his depth. Police work is not for amateurs. Well, at least we got the body buried. He'd have left it till Christmas.
Oh.
I have to admit, I'm a mite disappointed, too. My editor's expecting another Inspector Nickles mystery.
Quentin, I feel there's something odd here.
Well, not you too, Abby.
No, hear me out. I spoke to the chambermaid this afternoon. It seems Rodney Clemens' parents died last month.
Yes, Stone told us that.
Yeah, old Mr. Clemens was 70, and he was run over by a wagon. Less than 2 weeks later, his wife, second wife, I might add, a pretty 30-year-old, apparently fell or threw herself into a river and drowned.
Distraught over her husband. Your point, Detective Abby?
First, this is hardly a country where wives leap onto funeral pyres, and 3 family members die in about a month with a $500,000 inheritance changing hands each time.
Well, there's hardly a crime there. Save me from amateurs.
Do I detect some professional jealousy?
Professional? Your profession is medicine, my dear, not conspiracy.
Don't you my dear me in that condescending tone.
Fine. If you want to play detective, go ahead. But do you know why I resent amateur interference in police matters?
Something tells me we're going to hear why.
Simply because I've almost been killed twice thanks to amateurs. Back in London at the Yard, a journalist playing detective accidentally tipped off a murderer I was coming to arrest him, and he shot me when I arrived. Then I was arresting train robbers I'd cornered in an alley when a young lieutenant recently commissioned in the 4th Hussars happened by. Seeing me holding 2 men at gunpoint, he drew his sword and tried to run me through. We got into it, the robbers bashed us both on the head and escaped, and when we woke, I arrested him. And then it became really serious.
Nichols,
Sir Leonard, what brings you here?
an urgent message from Lady Cockerell. Apparently you have arrested a member of my family, you blundering oaf. Who's next? Me?
I was arresting Muggs and Strathroy, sir.
The Southampton train robbery?
Right, sir. Anyhow, I had the drop on them, and this young fool...
Where is he?
He's in the next room.
Here? Winston, come in here. My God, boy, you do get into messes.
Sorry, Uncle Leonard.
Uncle? Sir, this young busybody almost got us both killed.
Oh, nevertheless, I'd like you to release him, Nichols. He cannot have a record. I hope to bring him into the Yard one day. He's a suitable fit for Her Majesty's employ. Trained in military leadership, decisive, brave, determined, all the qualities we need.
Begging your pardon, Uncle Leonard. Without giving offense, I've set my mind on something else. It's my intention to make my reputation as a war correspondent.
Bless my soul, boy, you astound me. A scribbler? Hardly work for a gentleman, surely.
Perhaps not, but that's my thinking. Of course, it's early, but I think in the end I'd sooner write about men rather than kill them. Though I may not do either unless I am freed soon.
How so?
My colonel is to give me dinner at his club tonight and discuss my future. I prefer to be on time and not clank when I walk.
All right, Sir Leonard. But I tell you, Lieutenant, the next time a policeman identifies himself to you, believe him.
But you were dressed like a heathen, sir.
A disguise, sir. Judged not on appearance alone. You, a leader of men, should have recognized that. Plus my badge.
Available for a farthing anywhere in Lime.
Just be off with you.
I can't, Uncle. My uniform is incomplete. I need a sword.
Nichols, return Winston's saber, please.
Can't, sir. Well, I could, but it wouldn't do him much good. I was a little angry after the incident.
He grabbed my sword and bent it into the shape of a fish hook, Uncle Leonard.
All right, Winston. Stop by my house. Ask your Aunt Beryl to give you my saber from the library wall. Now be off with you.
Sorry about my temper, sir. Perhaps I can get the saber reforged.
Oh, never mind. He's a good boy, Nichols, if a bit impetuous. He'll always fight the good fight. A young man with a bright future. Mark my words, this won't be the last time you hear about young Winston Churchill.
And did you
Did I what?
hear about him?
No.
As I said, Mr. Clemens died of a massive heart attack and then fell into the wagon's path. The injuries from the wagon were minor. He had a heart condition.
Yeah, I see. And Mrs. Clemens, I believe she drowned later.
Yes, terrible tragedy.
Did you examine her, Dr. Mulholland?
Yes. Yes, classical signs of drowning. Lungs full. She was so young, so pretty. Might have been an accident. Who knows? Why these questions, Doctor?
Just routine, sir. You know, 3 deaths in the same family.
Oh, yes. Rodney. Another young life snuffed out through a moment of carelessness.
Yes, remember, Abby, follow the money.
Just out of curiosity, Doctor, do you know where the inheritance would have gone with the family deceased?
Oh, the family is not entirely deceased. Mr. and Mrs. Clemens had a daughter, 5-year-old Penelope, who lives with Mrs. Clemens' brother now. That child is a mighty rich little girl.
I'd rather the child didn't hear this. My wife and I have had a devil of a time. She misses her mother so.
We won't take up much of your time, Mr. Mace. We regret your sister's death.
Thank you. Terrible accident.
Yes, and her husband. And his son.
Thank you, Inspector, if you don't mind.
Oh, sorry.
Well, the son was a chip off the old block, and the father was a bastard. Excuse me, madam. Used to beat my sister, and then put on his coat and gloves, take his cane, and tip his hat to the ladies on his nightly constitutional. Good riddance, I say.
Well, why did he beat her?
Because he was a cruel bastard who married her because she was young, and then resented her for her youth. Ask Dr. Mulholland. He treated her often enough. I tell you, when I saw him grab his gut and go under the wheels of that wagon, it was like the divine providence had interceded.
Wait, he grabbed his stomach?
Yes. When I got to him, he was convulsing and died. Not much there. He'd been sick for some time, losing weight. Couldn't keep his food down. And my sister nursed him the whole time. Still, every night he'd rouse himself and go for his walk. He used to say that people's respect for him was a tonic. Little they knew.
But he had a heart problem as well.
Don't know about that. All I know is he and his son were cut from the same cloth. The old man hated her because she was young. And Rodney hated her because she was in the old man's will. That's the only reason I can think that she stayed, other than her love for Penelope. She lived in a house consumed by hate and suspicion.
Suspicion?
Yes. After he became sick, he gave orders that only the cook was allowed in the kitchen. She even had to taste all his food. He was such a bitter man. He thought someone was trying to poison him. But cook stayed healthy, so he was wrong.
Now, what do you think, Inspector?
Well, it's curious Dr. Mulholland didn't give us more information. But if we accept that Rodney had the money in the end, who stood to gain by his death?
Penelope?
Or her guardian?
Sounds like he hated father and son enough to kill them. The only problem is they died accidentally.
One thing's for certain. Mace as much as told us she was a gold digger who wasn't about to commit suicide over her husband's death.
So her death was an accident.
Or someone held her underwater to look like an accident.
But who? Her stepson? No, enough. I want to autopsy him.
Dear God, Abby, we just got him buried yesterday.
No, not Junior. I want to do a post-mortem on Senior.
What do you expect to find, Abby?
It's what I don't find that's significant.
Don't worry about it, but you're beginning to sound a little bit like me.
Oh, revenge is sweet. See? He has the heart of a 30-year-old. No scarring, no damage whatsoever.
Yes, which brings us to why Dr. Mulholland said it was a heart attack. Perhaps he was covering up for Mr. Bass. Yes, I'd like to question him on that. When's he due back?
Friday. But before we leap to conclusions, Mr. Clemens' symptoms resemble those of a man I treated in Montreal.
And?
And I shall just take a lock of Mr. Clemens' hair.
The Marsh test?
Well, Inspector, I see you know your poisons.
It's been 2 days, and Lemon swore he'd have results by now.
Quentin, the manager, is waving.
Ah, yes, well, perhaps Lemon's on the telephone. Follow me. Thank you, sir. Hello? Yes, Chief Constable. Yes, fine, sir. Yes, sir. I see. Yeah, or an elephant. We'll let you know. Thank you, sir. Well, congratulations, Abby. From what they can tell, his body must be full of arsenic. Enough to kill an elephant. Seems it's a murder most foul. Well, the next question is, who had motive and opportunity?
Mrs. Clemens.
Yes, or his son. There was money involved.
But if someone was feeding him arsenic, why isn't the cook dead?
Well, a visit to his house might tell us. Let's find our esteemed constable, shall we? Well, it's very nice of the constable to let us in. Hold up the lantern, Abby.
Yep.
Oh,
Wellington, mind where you step.
well, where are the
They
lights?
shut off the electrics at 10.
So, if he was poisoned with arsenic, we'll be looking for the kitchen.
No, we're looking for the hall closet.
Why the hall closet?
You remember that the cook tasted all his food, so he obviously didn't eat the arsenic.
And what is this inked paper for?
Ah, here it is. Now, let's see. Top hat, scarves. Gloves.
Of course, the gentleman killer.
Yes. Here, Wellington, put the ink paper on this table. Now, I shall turn the gloves inward out, insert Daniel, give me your pencil.
Oh,
Now, you see, I push it into a finger and tap it onto this dark paper. Now, bring the light closer. Yes, there you go. You see that powder? A week's wages. That's arsenic.
arsenic in his gloves?
Yes, it's an old trick called dusting the gloves. You see, the inside of the gloves are dusted with the poison, so it's absorbed into the body through the pores in the skin. Each time the wearer uses them, he absorbs more and gets sicker until he succumbs. He can change his diet, but it won't do any good. It's called the gentleman killer.
Well, I'll be. What a sneaking way to kill a man. I prefer Texas, where if you got a problem with someone, you shoot him. Face to face or in the back.
Yes, but it lacks subtlety, my friend, and imagination. Now, we know how. We have to find out who. But I believe I may have... Well, it's a reasonable theory.
Care to share it, since we're co-detectives?
No, not yet.
Oh.
First, there's more work to do.
Now, as long as it doesn't require any more digging.
Well, that's disappointing. I was sure we'd find that Mrs. Clemens had bought arsenic at the apothecary. Wonder if they sell it at this general store.
Oh, at least they have some very nice gingham.
Good day to you, sir. Do you sell arsenic?
You got a rat problem, mister?
Well, a former friend may have had one they wanted to see laid to rest.
And who would that be?
Do you sell it or don't you?
Used to. Ran out years ago. Never got no more in.
Yes, all right, thank you. Wait. Do you sell fly paper?
Of course.
And did you ever sell any to Mrs. Clemens?
Mrs. Clemens? Well, yes, as a matter of fact. Lots of it.
Thank you. Fly papers contain arsenic, which can be distilled from them. Though she must have been busy to get enough to dust his gloves.
So, Mrs. Clemens murdered Clemens Sr.?
Most likely. And now I think it's time to get Daniel and the shovels.
Why do we have to do it tonight? Just as well dig the lady up tomorrow.
Dr. Mulholland will be back tomorrow, and I'd like to know a little more before I talk to him. Also, the judge was out of town, so we don't have an official permission to exhume the body.
Oh, Quentin, you lie!
Yes, I know, but would you be out here if I hadn't?
You know, Mace could have dusted those gloves. He could always get access to the house through his sister. Oh, but then, why wouldn't she do it herself?
Precisely. Why not indeed?
I think I've hit the coffin, Inspector.
Gentlemen, let's try to bring this one up in one piece, if you don't mind.
Your wish is our command.
Here, help me roll her over.
Even if she shows symptoms of drowning, we can't be sure if it was accidental or otherwise.
Oh, no fear of that. Look here, in the hairline.
Is it a wound?
Yes. Let me just insert this instrument and... Oh, see how deep... Oh, heavens.
What is it?
See how my instrument moves as though someone inserted an ice pick or something, and then, pulled it around to pulverize the brain.
So, again we know how, but not who. We have 2 murders, that means... but only one motive. Unless...
Unless what? The motive for the first murder became the motive for the second. I mean, it's late. No puzzles, please.
Put your hands up, both of you.
Dr. Mulholland, you're back early.
Forgive me, Inspector. Doctor, I didn't know it was you down here. And who's that? Oh my God, Marie. Mrs. Clemens.
Yes, I'm afraid we have some rather bad news. Seems we have 2 murders on our hands.
Would you like more coffee, Doctor?
Thank you.
No, I didn't autopsy her. I just didn't have the heart.
Not even a cursory examination of the body?
No, it was obvious. She drowned.
Now, why didn't you tell us about Clemens' beating of his wife? Or do something? Certainly you don't condone that.
No, but she always refused to let me say anything to him. Mr. Clemens was a very powerful man. She put up with him, even tried to nurse him when he became ill.
Were you aware that someone was poisoning Mr. Clemens with arsenic?
Poisoning him? Are you sure?
Well, you must have treated him. What do you think?
Wrong, Inspector. Clemens took his ailments to Toronto. I only saw his wife.
Well, thank you for your time, Doctor, and the use of the facilities. We'll be in touch.
Well, this is right back where we started, Inspector. The body is gone. What do you expect to find?
A hole, Wellington. And here, you've seen a good many slugs. This is the one dug out of the wall after going through young Clemens' skull. What do you think?
Well, it's not in bad condition.
Precisely, and that's because it never went through his head. Just into the wall where the constable dug it out. Now, Wellington, sit in a chair. Abby, come here. Abby, crouch over by the window the constable said was open and aim this pistol at Wellington's head.
Right.
Whoa, hold on.
It's not loaded. It's not loaded. So, I shall now follow an imaginary trajectory to here. And yes, a fresh hole in the wall. Damn and drat, nothing here now, of
You
course.
think it contained the bullet that killed Rodney Clemens?
Yes, what we have is a decoy. The killer shot Clemens through the window and then dug the bullet out of the wall and kept it.
Then where did this bullet come from? The one Stone dug out of the wall.
The killer looked at some angles and then fired into the wall in the middle of the splattering of blood, so it appeared to be on an upward angle. The real bullet travelled horizontally.
But the powder marks.
Ah, yes, devilishly clever, isn't it? He took the lead out of a .44 caliber cartridge, which you found, Wellington, and crimped it to make a blank. He then fired it into the corpse's face, giving him close-up powder burns, and the wadding hit him over the eye, giving him a contusion. He put a spent cartridge in the gun Rodney was cleaning, and voila, a terrible accident.
Now, assuming that's true, who did it?
If we know why it was done, we know who did it. You remember when I said one motive might have led to another motive? I think it led to this motive.
Speak English. I'm tired, Quentin.
Righto. Mrs. Clemens poisoned Mr. Clemens because he was a brutal sod. She freed herself from him and received her inheritance. Rodney Clemens somehow found out, and he stabbed his stepmother for revenge, or money, or both.
So, who killed Rodney?
The only one who truly loved Mrs. Clemens. Man who didn't have the heart to do an autopsy on her, but found that hole in her skull before we did.
Dr. Mulholland.
That's right. And by now I should imagine he knows we're onto him. And he's waiting for us back in his surgery.
Enter, Inspector.
Doctor, may we have a word?
Hello, Doctor.
Hello.
Mr. Wellington, I've been expecting you.
Yes, we thought as much.
You just couldn't leave it alone.
I'm afraid that was my fault. Why is that needle in your arm?
Don't come any closer. I'll push the plunger. Potassium chloride, you know. Irreversible.
Yeah, Quentin, he's going to kill himself.
Better my own hand than the hangman's rope.
There were circumstances, sir. You killed a killer.
So you figured it out.
Oh, yes. Mrs. Clemens killed her husband, her stepson killed her, and you killed the stepson. But why? You couldn't bring her back. Why not just turn him in?
The inheritance. Marie inherited his fortune on the understanding that it passed to his son on her death, but on his death it would pass again.
Yes, but surely you weren't in the will.
No, but Penelope was, and she is my daughter. Believe me, by the time Rodney was through, there would have been nothing left. Besides, he killed the only woman I ever truly loved, and Marie and I loved Penelope. When the old man died, we thought we'd be together, but somehow Rodney found out and the swine killed her.
Did Clemens Sr. know Penelope wasn't his daughter?
He guessed, so he took it out on her. Wouldn't come near me. Suppose he knew I'd find a way to send him to hell.
What now, Inspector?
Mr. Wellington, when you write this up, may I suggest a title? What about a family affair? What a family. Good luck to you all.
No, don't! No, he didn't need to do that.
Well, maybe he did. At best, it would have been life in prison. This way he's chosen his own path.
I know I've said it before, but you Easterners have some strange ways of settling debts.
Yes, perhaps. But as you must have noticed, we certainly don't lack imagination.
You have just heard The Investigations of Quentin Nickles for this week, a play called A Family Affair by John Richard Wright. Neil Monroe was heard as Quentin Nickles, with Sarah Orenstein as Abby Lapierre. Peter Millard was Daniel Wellington. Bernard Behrens was Sir Leonard Cockrell. Others in the cast were Paul Soles as Dr. Mulholland, Neil Daynard as Mr. Mace, Jonathan Elliott as Winston, and A. Frank Rufo as Constable Stone. The recording engineer was Joe Mahoney. Sound effects were by Matt Wilcott. Casting was by Linda Grierson. The associate producer was Colleen Woods. The executive producer of the Mystery Project is Bill Howell. The program was produced and directed by Barry Morgan. I'm Bob Boving, thanking you for listening and inviting your comments. See you next week.